This morning service has been dedicated unto the Lord, and also it's a special service. We want to educate ourselves and pray for those who have been affected by different types of illness. But especially we'll be looking at AIDS, how we can understand it better, prevent it. And as a result of that, we've got two charities here who will be speaking to us shortly, and we'll also see a video. We'll take our questions. Then we'll pray and ask God for His mercy and grace. We've got a charity, the founder of Actionplus Foundation is here. He's a man that God has called. He's a preacher. And the Lord gave him compassion and also a vision to lead in sharing the news on AIDS, so that those who have been affected can be cared for. Those who have not been affected can also be advised. Then we have another charity here. They are called the Positive East. They've also got a representative here who will be speaking, doing the main talk for us. But before I invite Reverend Fred to come in to share a few words, and he will introduce the main speaker for the day.
We are in partnership now. In the East, we have the Positive East organization that are going to support us to do the HIV testing in this community. So we're giving ourselves time. Very soon, the African community will no more be a leading community in HIV prevalence, but will be the leading community that has got the lowest HIV prevalence. Hallelujah. And as we saw from the clip that we showed to you, there are many things going on in the church that are not helping our people to access treatment, and let alone going to have their blood check done. The church is not a place to stigmatize people. The church is a place of love and comfort. And you could see a pastor. He is a pastor of a church. And he has fallen into a situation. He doesn't even know how it happened. His wife is also in the same situation. And revealing his condition to the pastor who is in charge. I was expecting to say, it is going to be well with you. All is not lost yet. The whole church is behind you. It is going to be well and bring hope and restoration. At the end, it didn't happen. At the end, the whole family was thrown out of the church, and they had to relocate. And this pain and anger has become their piece of bread and cake. And it is happening here in this city as well. The love that we are supposed to give is not there because we have changed the word of God, the scriptures, and we have been using the scriptures for our own good. But if we said the Lord God we serve is a good God, it doesn't matter whatever has happened, whatever we know, He is always ready for us to cross the line. Because the Bible says, for God so loved the world, He gave us His only begotten Son. Even when we were yet in sin, Christ Jesus came to die for us. So through His death, we will receive eternity. The love of God is agape. Agape love is I love you for who you are. It doesn't matter what, I love you. Step on my toes, I love you. And this must be the symbol and the costume that must be practiced in the church of God.
That is what HIV stands for. HIV is an acronym, which means every letter stands for something. Human, because it's transmitted between people. Some people talk about us catching HIV from monkeys. That's a myth. The animals have their own strain of the virus, but the humans cannot get it from the animals. Immunodeficiency. What the HIV virus does, it attacks your fighter cells. The very soldiers that help you fight illnesses. Those are the ones that it attacks. And when that happens, it means you cannot, your body is unable to fight off infections. And what happens? So what happens when your immune system is totally beaten, you develop AIDS. People always say, oh, I'm going to test for AIDS. No, you do not test for AIDS. What do you test for? You test for HIV. HIV is that tiny virus that sneaks into your system and slowly destroys it. But now we do not have to want to allow that virus to destroy our systems, because there's something we can do about it, individually and together. Can you go back a bit to the other? I just need us to understand the AIDS bit, because it's very important. When your system is totally battered, the AIDS is also an acronym, Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, which means the immune system is damaged, and it's got from somebody else. It's not like hereditary or a genetic thing. It isn't. You have to catch it from somebody else. immune deficiency, lack of ability to fight illnesses, and the syndrome is a collection of illnesses. If somebody has AIDS, they develop things like, do people know some of the symptoms for AIDS? I'm not assuming that you don't know. Anybody know anything? If somebody has AIDS, what are some of the illnesses? Fever? Okay, there is tuberculosis, there is pneumonia, and it doesn't mean that everybody has TB, has those things. And also there used to be all these kaposi, which are like skin cancers. So I don't want you to freak out and say, oh, because I have a cough, maybe I have AIDS. You know that happens when somebody talks about something, you suddenly start feeling the symptoms. Please don't do that. I'm not here to scare you. We're all here to learn. So that means a collection of illnesses. And because of what we have now, we have the powers to hold the HIV getting here. It's in each one of us. I want everybody to say, it starts with me. That wasn't loud enough. It starts with me. And I'm going to be holding you to account what you've just said. Well, this is what happens if somebody has AIDS. I mean, stages of the infection, the antibodies. By the way, when we do the HIV test, we don't test for the HIV, we test antibodies. The body then, when HIV enters your body, the body gets antibodies, and that's what is shown in the blood. So that's what we're looking for when we do the HIV test. Asymptomatic. How long does a person with HIV take before they develop symptoms to HIV? How long do they take? Does somebody take? If I got infected today, how many years will it be before I start showing symptoms? Does anybody know? Sorry? Yes, it varies with individuals. There's no like, some people will be 2 days, other people 1 year, other people so long. But now with the treatment, it's actually a different matter as well. And then when people have symptoms, then they say they have symptomatic. And then they receive the AIDS diagnosis. Next one, please. So, how do you get this HIV? It's contained in 3 body fluids. It's found in the sexual fluids, it's found in the blood, and it's found in breast milk. With regard to the sexual fluid, it's through unprotected sexual intercourse, blood products, sharing unclean needles or receiving unclean blood. That is something that will not happen to you in the developed world. In the developing world, I cannot guarantee you. I know there is a campaign for clean needles and all that, but then it doesn't necessarily happen. So when you go and visit home, please be mindful of that. But here, that's why they developed the needle campaign thing for drug users, so that because they used to share needles and pass on the virus. And then a mother can pass the virus on to their unborn child. And also the virus is contained in the breast milk. But all this is information that kind of archaic. It's a bit old. Things are slightly different nowadays, as you'll find out later on. People always freak out when they hear about somebody with HIV, or if I shake hands with them, they're going to pass it on, or if they start bleeding now, they're going to pass it on to me. The virus is very smart, but in terms of passing it on, it's not that straightforward. It's actually quite hard. You see this quality, quantity, and growth. You need to have the virus in good proportion, in good form. HIV virus will not remain fresh and able to infect when left in fresh. Like now, if you put it here, it will die off. So it doesn't mean that if somebody put their blood here, come touch it, you're going to get HIV. You may get hepatitis B and whatever, but definitely not the HIV. And then there has to be a route. It has to find a route into your blood system while it's still fresh. That's why the needles, the HIV remains fresh in the needle, in the syringe, in the needle. And then if somebody gets from one person to another, they're taking the virus more than just the drug. They're taking the virus as well. That's what happens. So we need to understand those things so we do not freak out every time we hear about HIV or AIDS or whatever. Knowledge is power. And all this information I'm giving you can actually go and find out more online. Just to emphasize, I mentioned this along the way, you cannot get HIV through any of these things. Through normal touch, kissing, hugging, shaking hands, sharing. If somebody cooked food for you and they're HIV positive, believe me, enjoy it. Don't be freaked out, because it's not dangerous at all. Coughing and sneezing, contact with toilet seats, insect and animal bites, and all these things. And it's the person who's HIV positive who's actually more at risk, or used to be. Why would that be? Why would they be more at risk, you think?
Their immune system is low.
Because their immune system is low. You're running away from them. They should be the ones running away from you, not the other way around. Current. What you see highlighted there shows late infections. And as I'm African, I'm from Uganda, and I believe there are many Africans, the majority of you are Africans here. We top the tables for presenting late for HIV testing. So late presentation is what is being shown there. And that impacts, when somebody presents late, what happens then? They develop AIDS, when they could have received treatment sooner and been able to stop that. This was just to emphasize what normally happens when somebody receives an HIV diagnosis. It's the despair, because nobody wants to know you, more like what Job felt and what many people feel, even within their own. I had a friend of mine who tested HIV positive, and the sister, she used to babysit for her children, and she wouldn't let her touch them. She wouldn't even let her drink in the same cup. She wouldn't even let her use the toilet. Let us educate ourselves, so we don't do such things that make us be so evil, and actually they could potentially kill somebody. Yeah, before, when we talk about prevention, the main thing that we normally have is the condom. But now, clean needles. But now I'm very excited about the fact that early testing and treatment are prevention themselves. When somebody is HIV positive and receiving HIV medication and taking their medication properly, it makes them less infectious. Unless, of course, they've been doing other things and they have a sexually transmitted infection, that's different. But if they're taking their medication and doing everything right, they will not pass on the virus. That's why we're here today, to try and look for the quarter of the 90,000. Remember? Who do not know they are HIV positive. We go out everywhere to educate ourselves so we do not fall into that category, so that we do not develop AIDS. Most of the people who die today to an HIV-related illness are the people who haven't tested in time. You have the opportunity of being here in the UK, you're not in Africa. There's really no excuse for somebody coming and dying when we're all here and who could be there to support them. In relation to prevention as well, how many of us have heard about PEP? You see, there are so many acronyms and so many words, even I can kind of get the hands of them. Anybody heard about PEP in the room? Okay. Just some people. The full word of that PEP is post-exposure prophylaxis. What it means is, like, people who work in the medical field, I give an example. If somebody was taking blood of somebody who was maybe, they may not even know their status, and the needle pricked them after taking blood from the other person. Remember what we talked about, needles? And there's a possibility of an HIV positive patient who's not on medication, and there's a possibility that the needle got into the needle pricks them. It means there's a possibility that infection could happen. So that's where PEP comes in. Don't take it like the morning after pill. It's a course of drugs for 4 weeks. But what it does, it actually stops the onward infection. It means that nurse or doctor, if they were going to get HIV infection, they will not if they take that drug. Isn't that exciting? So go and educate yourself. Let's go and educate ourselves. And what it is that if you know that you've been in that kind of scenario, within 72 hours, appear with it to the medical team and receive the treatment that you need. Yeah, remember we said it starts with me? It starts with me. I love those quotations, that's why I particularly picked them out. If you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. Beautifully, huh? All that is necessary for triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. I'm sure those of us in this room are not going to do nothing, especially as we have the brilliant leadership from our two leaders here. And this is very important. Many of us have turned the virus into some kind of enemy, ostracizing even our very own sisters and brothers. So let's not victimize those people. Let's understand that this is an enemy that's come to wipe away the world. 25 years down the line, we're still talking about HIV, we're still talking about AIDS, it's still killing people. It shouldn't be like that. The only reason it is like that is because of the stigma attached to the condition that harbors us from talking about it and having meaningful discussions and doing what we're supposed to be doing.